What's going on, everybody? It is the Chasing Larger Sports Stories podcast. Your hosts, Derek Larger and Chase Steffes. Guys, week 2 is officially over. Moving on to week 3 starting tomorrow. There's a lot of great things that happened over the weekend. And if week 2 showed us anything about the NFL, it's that there is just never enough excitement when it comes to the NFL. It is not over until it is over. And we saw a whole bunch of that happen this last week. I will say this, guys. I did absolutely terrible at picking picks this last week. I went 7 of 9 and Chase went 10 and 6. So he now has a 3-game lead over me at this point. So
yes,
we'll hopefully get a chance to right that wrong here at some point. But let's talk about last week's games. First one we can quickly talk about, the Dolphins and the Ravens. What a shootout that was. Both quarterbacks playing at an elite level. Tua throwing for 6 touchdowns in that game, Chase. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle become the first pair of teammates in NFL history to have 150 reception yards and 2 touchdowns in the same game. So the Dolphins offense was firing on all cylinders on Sunday. What was your take on the Dolphins comeback against the Ravens?
Mike McDaniels. Like that's the one or the 2-word answer I got for you. Mike McDaniels. This coach was unbelievable. When he was with San Francisco, he was in charge of like running that offense back when they went to the Super Bowl. And getting Debo involved in like the screens, the jet sweeps, the bubble passes, you name it, like everything that it was, he was in charge of doing that. And I think that it's showing that he is utilizing Waddle and Hill with their speed and bringing into that offense. That dude is smart as hell. And he is 33, 34 years old. He is a young buck of a head coach. But I'm telling you what, Tua played his heart out. They were down by 21 points. And like you said, this was a weekend of comebacks from behind from like many different teams.
Oh, yeah.
And
there was at least 3 games that were like that.
Yeah, the Raiders game, the Browns game, and the Dolphins game is 3 that I can think of. But yeah, no, they were down by 21 points and ended up coming back and winning the game. And that goes to further my thing of, there was almost 2 full quarters, and the Ravens had like 32 points, and they couldn't get any more than that going. And that just goes to show you that my point with Lamar Jackson still stands. That yes, he threw for 400 yards and had like 3 touchdowns, but I still don't think that he's worth a fully guaranteed 250 a year. Now, if you want to do a fully guaranteed contract, do like 200 mil. That's fine, but I'd say Mike McDaniels is my big takeaway from the Dolphins game.
Yeah, I'm not even going to take anything away from Lamar. Lamar, again, played absolutely phenomenal, but it was just a historical performance by the Miami Dolphins that just set that game apart. And, I mean, what a phenomenal game. You mentioned the Browns game with the Jets as another comeback. Joe Flacco, man. I mean, Joe Flacco showing he still has it. I mean, he threw for over 400 yards, had a bunch of touchdowns. Garrett Wilson, the rookie out of Ohio State, the wide receiver, he had a great performance in that game.
Breece Hall, Corey Davis, you name it.
Yeah, so, like, I mean, what was your initial thoughts of that game? I mean, because I saw a lot of Browns fans were insanely unhappy with that loss.
I think that everybody just needs to calm the hell down and quit blaming Nick Chubb for that, because in what right mind are you thinking, okay, we are up by 7 points. I've got a chance to score. I'm going to put us up by 13 points, and we've got 1:30 left. Let's hope our defense can, hold it down and get, 1 stop, or even if we don't get the 1 stop, they score. We still can get the ball back. In any NFL player's mind, their thought process is, okay, we're going to take a 2-touchdown lead. We're going to get the ball back either way, even if they score, or if we get a stop, we'll get it back and we'll still win the game. So that's what he was thinking. People were blaming Chubb for not going down at the 2-yard line and scoring on that play because they're like, we could have taken a knee. No, they had 2 timeouts still. And not to mention, they also, that would have put us in 4th down territory, and we would have had to kick a field goal in that sense. And yes, we would have had a lot less time on the clock, but even still, we didn't recover the onside kick. We did not do the like have the coverages that we were supposed to. That's 2 games in a row where we had blown coverages. I think that the biggest takeaway is fire Joe Woods. Fire Joe Woods, because if he had played better coverage in that game, we do not lose that game. Fire the special teams coordinator, because Amari Cooper could have easily jumped on that ball, but he hesitated and waited for it to come to him rather than him going to it, and they recovered the onside kick and lost that game. They had nothing to blame but themselves for that game, and there was a lot of finger pointing on the defensive side of the ball for who lost that game, and that is the one thing that you cannot have.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, it's special teams and the defense just not taking a stand, especially at the end of the game when it really matters. So,
people blaming Nick Chubb though is ridiculous.
Yep, I understand. And then another game that was close one. Giants won again this week, 2-0, like you said, first time in like 10 years or 5 years that this has happened. The Giants really looking like a cohesive unit out there, not winning by only winning by an average of 2 points right now. But in the end of the day, in the NFL, it's all that matters. I mean, the Panthers game, the Panthers just don't look great. We're going to talk about them here shortly. The Bengals losing again to the Cowboys.
Without that, yeah.
Yeah, and the Cardinals and the Raiders, that one was another one of those comeback games where, it was one of those things. You and I both picked the Raiders, and the Raiders were winning 23-7 going into the end of the third quarter. Fans were popping champagne at the end of the third quarter thinking this game is over. And sure enough, Cardinals take it to overtime. Cardinals end up getting a fumble and recover it for a touchdown. So, I mean, what was your take on that game?
That Kyler Murray's not worth the contract that they are paying him. Like, granted, yes, they came back and won, but it was on a lot of Raiders' stupid mistakes. I mean, Josh and I were sitting here watching that game, and with, all of the weapons that Kyler has, how good his defense is and everything, and you still were down from that game to begin with, and you didn't even put up a fight in week 1 versus the Chiefs and everything like that. And it just goes to show you how much he was missing D-Hop. But like, my takeaway from that is, from this entire week, is just protect the ball, secure it, do whatever you got to do, jump on it, whatever. Like, it costs you games making these stupid mistakes. And it also just goes to show you how weak the secondary of the Raiders really is, and how they really need an all-star corner, because they blew a lot of coverages and they blew a lot of games. So it's very interesting. But I want to go back to the Giants game real quick. Like, that game was insane. I know that Brian Daboll is their head coach now, but we are starting to see a much better play from Daniel Jones, being more secure, more careful with the ball, but he's still trying to take shots. And there's also rumors that they're probably going to be releasing Kenny Golladay soon. So we'll have to wait and see how that goes.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Kenny Golladay was, coming out saying that it's ridiculous that I'm not playing, when, I've also heard that, Kenny Golladay in his preparation half the time is just walking through things and isn't even attempting to practice nowadays. So, it doesn't sound like the Giants are really that interested in him, because he's not showing much interest. And, they're winning in spite of him. Couple other games. Commanders fall to the Lions. Lions have another big offensive output. The Buccaneers finally beat the Saints in New Orleans for the first time in 6 years. Patriots actually beat the Steelers. Rams avoided a late comeback from the Falcons by a late pick by Jalen Ramsey. 49ers off of Jimmy G coming back into frame. The Seahawks lose that one. Broncos defeated the Texans 16-9. Green Bay defended their home turf against the Bears, winning 27-10. Bills absolutely dominating the Titans 41-7. And the Eagles finishing it out with a 24-7 win over the Vikings. There's 4 teams here, Chase, that I want to talk about. All of these teams either being 0-1-1 or 0-2 at this point. The Colts, the Titans, the Panthers, and the Bengals. Of all of these teams, who should we be most concerned about with the fact that these teams have started the year out the way they have?
I'd say the Bengals, a team that went to the Super Bowl last year, really did not lose hardly anybody. They even picked up, some people for the secondary, picked up what was his name? Dixon or Dix from Michigan, their safety. Mm-hmm. And they even beefed up the offensive line this offseason, and they're still giving up so many sacks and still losing games. And, they lost to a Dakless Cowboys team for crying out loud. And you're telling me that we shouldn't be concerned about the Bengals? Like, no, they are playing like they, did 2 years ago, rather than a team that, didn't lose anybody and gained a lot of people. I think they're the team that we should be worried the most about out of all 4 of those teams.
I mean, I'll throw a stat out to you right now, Chase. Joe Burrow has already been sacked more times than every opponent in the AFC North combined. So the rest of the AFC North's quarterbacks have been sacked 8 times. He has been sacked 13 times through the first 2 games of the season. Now, granted, I know they were facing some really good pass rushers in, the Cowboys. You got Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. Micah Parsons, who's quickly becoming one of the most efficient pass rushers in the NFL at such a young age. And obviously TJ Watt and Highsworth, those guys are, going to be really good players for the rest of the time that they're in the NFL. But
it doesn't get any easier going to the Jets this week. They got Jermaine Johnson, who has been balling out for the Jets on the defensive line. They still got Quentin Williams, that defensive tackle who, was disrupting Jacoby Brissett a lot this week. And then not to mention, you still got CJ Mosley, who was one of the better linebackers in the AFC East, and potentially one of the better ones in the whole AFC. And that Jets defense is nothing to be played with. Not to mention Sauce Gardner's playing really well and everything like that. That Jets defense is actually surprisingly good. And I was really high on the Jets this year too, saying that they were going to be a good team offensively and defensively. So it's not going to get any easier for Joe this week. It's actually probably going to be just as difficult.
Yeah, and I mean, I would probably say not as much issue with me when it comes to the Bengals. I don't believe that it's something that's going to be too concerning about. Me personally, I think the biggest issue they have right now is that offensive line. And we've seen Joe Burrow play without an offensive line through the first couple years of his career, and he's been just fine. I think that they'll figure it out at some point. But it definitely is a concern, their inability to block at all on the offensive side, especially when, like you said, they upgraded and they look worse than what they were before. So
now, if they start off 0-3, do you think it's more time to concern then?
Yeah, I mean, the more losses they continue to stack up, definitely, because the Ravens are going to be one of those teams that they're going to keep coming at it. I mean, the Browns, they do have one win at the moment. So, I mean, every other AFC North opponent has a win, and the Bengals do not. They're dead last. I mean, the more they keep losing, it definitely. And the Jets, I mean, go figure. I mean, the Jets right now, I mean, you would have probably said that if they lost to the Browns, and they didn't look as good as they were, you'd probably assume the Bengals are just going to go in there and they're just going to trounce them. But, what the Jets just did to the Browns, I mean, I can't say that, because even when, and ironically enough, when the Cowboys played the Bengals last week, ironically, it felt like the Cowboys were more efficient offensively with Cooper Rush at quarterback than what they were with Dak Prescott even, which was weird to think about. But yeah, it's definitely a concern for the Bengals. Me personally, I think the one team that you need to be the most concerned about out of all of these four is probably going to end up being the Indianapolis Colts right now. And I think the problem I have with it is, and it's not just bias. I mean, I look at all these teams, the Panthers, they're having struggles with utilizing their offensive weapons, but at least they have those offensive weapons and something can change as time goes along. The Titans, yeah. And the Titans, I mean, they just haven't gotten their offensive game plan going, but I would say they're just as bad of a situation right now as Indianapolis, because Indianapolis, you don't have a great offensive weapon right now that's taking over games. I mean, Jonathan Taylor showed you once again that even with no other weapon being readily available, Jonathan Taylor simply cannot take over a game all by himself and just continue to win the game for you. As unbelievable as a running back as he is just not good enough to take over the game and say, I am going to win this game for you guys because we can't throw the football. That just can't happen.
Yeah, and you were missing Pittman and you were missing Pierce. So, like, let that sink in, too. Like, you were missing two of your offensive wide receivers. And, you know, Matt Ryan did not.
And right now, the offensive line right now for Indianapolis is a total dumpster fire, which is crazy because 2 years ago, this offensive line was widely regarded as one of, if not the best offensive line groups in the entire NFL. And now all of a sudden,
baby.
Yeah. Woo! Well, and as of now, the Colts are one of the worst. I mean, they're absolutely one of the worst. Quentin Nelson is one of the only few consistent guys on that offensive line. Ryan Kelly, our center, has completely digressed since signing his contract 2 years ago. Braden Smith has regressed since signing his new contract. He was hurt all last year, and he's been terrible to start this year. Danny Pinter has not looked good, and Matt Pryor has not looked good on the left side. You let go of your left tackle, your right guard, and your other backup left guard all in the offseason, and had no pressure, no situation to bring anyone in, and just said that you felt comfortable with the backups now stepping in as starters, and it's turned into a total travesty. And then on top of it, you've got the defense for Indianapolis. You know, their defensive coordinator is saying that he is alarmed at how incapable the defensive players have been at adapting to the new system somehow, and says they're still trying to find ways to get these guys to be more aggressive on the defense. That's very concerning when you got a coach that says, I still can't figure out why these guys aren't doing the things that we're asking them to do. So I don't know what that's going to mean exactly. You know, I mean, the coaches were saying that this was going to be an easier system for them to work in, and so far it has been terrible. And ironically enough, the Chiefs, who the Colts play this next week, Patrick Mahomes has faced Gus Bradley's system, Chase. I think they said a grand total of like 4 times since being named the starter for or actually, I think it's more like 5 times. He has thrown for 17 touchdowns in those 5 games against Gus Bradley's team. I mean, he has just at 17 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And so far, the Colts have given up the highest completion percentage to receivers of any team in the NFL. So this is very, very scary that this defense is not good right now. This offensive line can't protect. It's the same situation as what Joe Burrow's in, even though I would still argue their offensive line's still way worse. I mean, the Colts right now just feel like they don't have a leader to take over. You know, I feel confident that Joe Burrow is going to help figure this team out, and I feel like they can still go off of the fact that this team is still good. I think it's just one aspect of their team that's bad. but every aspect of this Colts team is bad right now. There's nothing that gives anyone any hope that they're actually going to do anything good. So I think the Colts are the one team you have to worry about the most.
I mean, I completely understand where you're coming from, but from a team that made it to the Super Bowl and stuff last year, and to start off the season when upgrading your offensive line with the guys that they did, and everybody's just like, oh yeah, we are absolutely going to be good now because these offensive linemen were playing well in the systems that they were playing with. And then you just come in and he's getting sacked and the most sacked quarterback in the league, and missing throws, having so many interceptions, doing all that. Like, it's very concerning for a team that was supposed to take off pick up right where they left off and get going. But yeah, this Colts team is, they're sitting here acting like they don't know how to play as a team. And it's very concerning because if the Jags win this next week, they are 2-1. And if the Colts lose, they are 0-2-1. And the Jags are in first place in this division, while the Titans, Colts, and Texans are all tied for last.
I mean, there's a very possible scenario that the Colts could end up being dead last in the division by the end of this week, because like you said, the Jags, if they somehow, even if the Jags didn't win, they'd still be ahead of the Colts. The Texans, they're going up against Justin Fields and the Bears, who haven't looked very good as of recently. There's a very good chance that the Texans could win that game. And the Titans are going to face the Raiders, who, the Raiders haven't looked all there yet either. So, there's a definitely good chance that they could do that as well. So, this Colts team could very well be could be very well last in the AFC South by the end of this. Give it 1 second, guys. I think Chase is on a phone call. We will let him finish that real quick. Next, we're going to talk about Jimmy G here, guys. We'll talk about Jimmy G and the 49ers from this last week.
Sorry, buddy. Miles ended up calling me, so I had to take that real quick.
All good. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the next topic. Talk about the 49ers and the big news at quarterback. So Trey Lance went down with a serious ankle injury, ended up breaking his ankle in a couple different places, and they proclaimed that he's probably going to be out for the rest of the season. And Jimmy G, who the 49ers insisted that they keep at this point, that decision's coming back to really help them right now.
Yep.
Jimmy G went in, and, from that moment forward, it felt like San Francisco was in control of that game from the very get-go. And now you even have anonymous sources coming out saying that team morale and confidence on the team has spiked since Jimmy Garoppolo came in during that game. What was your thoughts, Chase, on Jimmy G stepping in, and what do you expect from the 49ers going forward with Jimmy G?
I expect the Niners to pick up where they left off last year and be good. I mean, obviously this will be Jimmy G's fourth year in Shanahan's system now. And, he can run it very well. He knows this team inside and out. He knows the players inside and out, knows their strengths and weaknesses, everything like that. I think that they're going to be just fine having Jimmy G at quarterback. I think it was a smart move keeping him. So that way, they wouldn't, if anything happened with Lance, they wouldn't, that he could step in and not miss a beat. I still think that they're going to stick with Trey Lance as the starter when he comes back. I still think that, they're going to still give him the chance. They didn't give up all that draft capital and draft him that high to let him sit. They're going to still give him probably one full season to see what he can do and give him another, season to develop and everything now that he is injured. And then they'll see what they can do after that. But, this decision of keeping Jimmy G is going to help. And I think that the 49ers are still going to be a team, with a force to be reckoned with now that Jimmy G's in there. So I think that you're going to see a lot more production from Debo and a lot more production from Ayuk, and hell, maybe even a lot more production from Kittle now. And we'll have to wait and see, because they're going to be throwing the ball more rather than using Trey Lance's legs to try to help get some yards.
Do you buy into the frame that team morale and confidence is at a much higher level now that Jimmy G's the quarterback rather than Lance?
I wouldn't say that it's at a higher level. I would say that they probably feel more confident and more comfortable because, you know, Jimmy G has spent so many years and time into this system. And, you know, I believe that they trusted Trey Lance and they trusted the process that was going on. But, like, he still is, you know, getting used to the system, getting used to the playbook, getting used to the play calling, everything like that. And I think that, you know, that night that he came out, that he was in a club after one of the games and everything, that kind of like got a bad image and a bad rep in his eyes and everything. But the same thing could be said about Jimmy G, where the fact is that when he first got there, he was nowhere to be found. He wasn't going to the press conferences, didn't really contact any of the coaches or anything. So, like, you know, it's two sides to this of the same coin here. When it comes to this, but I think Jimmy G, the confidence is a little bit more higher because, you know, he's more comfortable with the system and knows the players very well.
I definitely buy into the idea of this team preferring Jimmy G be the quarterback because, I mean, look, I dog Jimmy G as a guy who, you know, is an average quarterback, sometimes above average when you ask him to be. But at the end of the day, I think that's kind of what San Francisco is hoping for right now. And you're not getting that kind of performance out of Trey Lance.
Not
you
yet.
know, we can say whatever we want about, you know, Jimmy G and his off the field stuff from before, but that was years ago at this point. I mean, what we're looking at right now is, you know, the 49ers went to the playoffs last year with Jimmy G. And, you know, with the season looking like it was going to start off to an absolutely terrible start where, you know, they lose to the Bears. And then you were looking like you almost were about to either stalemate or lose to the Seattle Seahawks of anything. You know, this team was looking for somebody to start taking action. And then this team really started to look like it was heading in a positive direction with Jimmy G. Because like you said, he's been in the system a lot longer. I think he's a better quarterback. And, you know, I don't know how much confidence the 49ers truly have in Trey Lance. You know, we can say whatever we want, but I really don't think that Trey Lance is still even close to being the kind of quarterback that I think the 49ers and everyone else wants him to be. We got to remember, this kid only played 1 year of college football, 1 year, and then here's the thing. When players in college play 1 year, they take a long time to get ready in the NFL. It doesn't work that way. It's not the NBA where you spend or in college basketball where you're a star your freshman year and then you can tell just if the guy's ready for the big leagues or not. You know that he would be. But for the NFL, it's different. When you play only 13 games in college, it goes to show. I mean, Dwayne Haskins, we used to make that argument all the time for Dwayne Haskins. The fact that he only played 1 year at Ohio State, he looked great, but some of the things, even his own head coach said he shouldn't go into the league. I think he has things he still needs to work on. And sure enough, when we got him into the league for the time that he was with us, he just never looked like the guy that ever had his stuff together. And that's because he was still learning on the fly. And when you're learning how to be a quarterback in the NFL still, that's how it gets. It takes a miracle for somebody like that to eventually become great. And that's what every quarterback needs to be, is they're striving to be great. And Trey Lance only had 13 games in college and going up against nobodies. And then, you know, he can be an athlete. He can have a strong arm. He can have the throwing ability, all he wants. But when you get into the NFL, it's a whole different ball game. And if you're not smart enough and capable enough to adapt to that system, it's just not going to get you anywhere. So I'm still not in on Trey Lance being the quarterback. I still think it was one of the worst picks that the 49ers could have made in that draft. They should have went with Justin Fields or should have went with Mac Jones. At this moment, I'm definitely picking Mac Jones over him. You know, at this point, that was the worst quarterback pick you could have made because you were going off of what you think he could be versus what the guy actually was when you drafted him. Fields had a year and a half worth of experience over Trey Lance before he even got to the NFL. And you just obviously knew he was a smarter player. He worked harder than Trey Lance. It wasn't hard to see why Justin Fields should have been the potential number 1 overall pick in the first place. But
over Lawrence?
Oh yeah, I was on board with Justin Fields going number 1 at the beginning of it to begin with. Yeah, 100%. I get where people make the argument of, Trevor Lawrence being the number 1. He was the safe pick, but I mean, Justin Fields, they played each other mano-a-mano in the college football playoff. And, Justin Fields looked like the better quarterback the last time that they played each other. So, and with a broken rib as well, and was still playing even in that game. So at the end of the day, that's another discussion for another time at one point.
I will say this. I don't think that it was a bad pick. I just think it was bad to start him this early. I still think that if you would have waited at least half of this season for him to develop a little bit more, get more comfortable with the system, because I've heard from Richard Sherman and like a bunch of other people that Shanahan's system is probably one of the most complex systems to learn because, just the way he runs everything. So I think that at least another half a season would have been better for him. I still wouldn't have not taken Mac Jones over Trey Lance. Mac Jones, I still think, is only good because of Bill Belichick, but that's a neither here nor there topic at the moment in time. But yeah, I do agree with you. Justin Fields would have been the way better pick at that point in time. And I think that, he's not going to pan out in Chicago, and they're going to end up releasing him because, they are setting him up for failure rather than success. And they're going to blame him for it rather than blaming the entire team and front office around him for not helping him out. And then it's going to get that stigma of Ohio State quarterbacks can never work in the NFL because they didn't do anything to help him out. But
believe me, I've had plenty of conversations with people about that, like as of recently. Like, people always just like to talk about specific position groups coming from specific schools, and therefore they just never pan out in the NFL, so you shouldn't do it. I hate that argument. I absolutely hate that argument because now people are trying to do that to CJ Stroud right now. And anyone that knows college football knows right now that's the way they're playing through 3 weeks in the college football season. CJ Stroud has looked better than any quarterback in college football right now. But of course, that's going to get used against him because, he's from Ohio State.
Same thing with Bryce Young in Alabama. Like those two are going to be, the top 1 and 2 quarterbacks taken off the board. And then they're going to have questions like, is CJ Stroud going to work out from Ohio State? Is Bryce Young going to work out because he's from Alabama? Blah, blah, blah. People may be deterred and they may pick Will Levis out of Kentucky, or they may pick Tyler Van Dyke out of Miami. But like right now, it's Bryce Young and CJ Stroud neck and neck for fighting for that first quarterback taken.
Well, let's go from one quarterback talk to another quarterback talk, and that's about Kenny Pickett and the Steelers. You brought this topic up. We heard that, obviously the Steelers offensively, not a lot is going on right now. From a passing game perspective, the Steelers really just don't have any functionality right now. I mean, Najee Harris is really their only offense right now. And, he's doing it on a bad lower body right now as is. So, is it time that the Steelers make a change and just put Kenny Pickett out there to see just if he's worse or if he's better?
I think at this point in time, you wait until after tomorrow and then put Kenny Pickett in to let him play. Because Trubisky's not getting the job done. And, he's playing horrible, not, having zip on his passes, throwing interceptions, not doing the checkdowns properly, not like reading the defenses. And, with this Steelers team not having chicken buns, so good.
Hey, the heck? I didn't want that ad to play. Gosh,
anyway, Anyway, so with TJ Watt being out, that's kind of hindering their defensive side of the ball because they're not getting the pressure on teams' offenses like what they, should be. And then Trishitsky on the other side of the ball is playing so bad that, they're not completing the passes, they're not getting the reads, they're not doing what they need to do. And that offense and that firepower is too dang good for them not to have success. So I think after tomorrow, let Mitch play tomorrow, and then after tomorrow, put Kenny Pickett in and see what he can do. So,
I mean, I just look at it from this perspective. First 2 weeks of the season, he threw 21 of 38 against the Bengals for 194 yards, 1 touchdown, and with a QBR of 78.2.
Yikes.
And last week, 21 of 33 for 168 yards and 1 touchdown, 1 interception with a QBR of 73. I mean, it's clear that, the start of the season, he's obviously not, creating any explosive plays with his offense. Is being more of a game manager right now versus anything. So, I just feel like if you're gonna play it safe, fine, stick with Trubisky, but I mean, why not just throw your hat in, throw like the big fish out there and see if, he thrives or if he falls flat on his face, like I feel you on that. Like if something doesn't start happening for Trubisky, and it's probably a good idea to see if Kenny Pickett can provide another level to this offense, because it's clear that they just don't quite have it right now. I mean, they can't score 14 against a team and hope to win.
Yeah, they don't have that spark that with Trishitsky like they would with Kenny Pickett and everything. So,
Jesus. You are something else. All right, last topic before we get into our picks for the week. The Buffalo Bills. I mean, what can you say? I mean, the Buffalo Bills have literally been on fire through the first 2 weeks of the season. They're averaging, let me make sure I get this right, they're averaging 36 points a game against their opponents, 31 against the Rams and 41 against the Tennessee Titans. I mean, they are just on fire right now. Stephon Diggs has more touchdowns right now than I think about 4 or 5 different teams have scored in total over the span of the first 2 weeks. So, I mean, this Buffalo Bills team, they are on fire. I mean, are they a sure lock at this point to pretty much take it to the house this year?
It's looking like that, but I'm still going to say there's only 2 teams in the AFC that I feel like can compete with the Buffalo Bills when it comes down to it, and that's the Chiefs and the Chargers, in my opinion, because when the Chargers are fully healthy, they got Keenan Allen, they got Eckler, they got Williams, and they got J.C. Jackson, Derwin James, Kenneth Murray, and Khalil Mack and Bosa. That team is going to be a force. It's all a matter of their coaching when it comes to all of this. Like their coaching with Sean McDermott, the coaching with Andy Reid, and the coaching with Brandon Staley. I think that the Chiefs have the biggest chance to take down the Buffalo Bills, even with how dominant the Bills are, because Patrick Mahomes is still the best quarterback in the league. It's still hard to go against him, and we have seen it time and time again. When he plays Josh Allen, he plays the best football of his life, and Josh Allen has yet to beat Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes. So until that happens, I cannot go against Kansas City and cannot go against how well of a coach team that Andy Reid is doing with this. But I will say that at this point in time, if the Bills keep going like this, they will beat anybody, including Mahomes and the Chiefs.
I think that what has been different with so far just through the first 2 games, it feels like their new offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey, has really been opening up the offense. I mean, they have just been at a point where nobody can stop Stephon Diggs. I mean, Diggs and Allen look like they are just inseparable right now. And I mean, they did that performance yesterday or a few days ago without even having Gabe Davis and a few others in there. And their offensive line is halfway decimated at this point, and they're still doing this. So, I mean, their firepower is insane. I mean, their first big play of the day was a 20-yard run by Devin Singletary. So, I mean, and their rushing ability has not really improved, but I think what has been happening is they're getting a few more big plays from their run game, which I don't think they had from last year. They were primarily just 90% pass. And if you could slow down the pass, then they're not going to run the ball on anyone. Well, in the first 2 games, I think that they've actually been able to get a few chip runs that have allowed for Josh Allen and this offense to be able to explore some different possibilities and try to create huge plays. And the defense as well. I mean, the defense for the Bills, I mean, what can you say? 17 points in the first 2 weeks of the season. I mean, that's insane. I mean, they made the Titans pretty much bench Tannehill the other day and put Malik Willis in there. So, like you said, when it comes to the AFC, there really is only like 1 or 2. I don't even know. I don't know at this point if I would even take the Chargers at this point. I feel like the only team that could match them right now is the Kansas City Chiefs. Even though I think the Chargers definitely have a shot, I still think that the Chiefs, like you said, with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, the way they're executing right now, they're just the best threat against them.
I would say the Browns had the chance if we had Watson, but we're not going to see him for weeks yet, so they're out of the question.
Yeah, and then on top of it, I mean, with that defense looking the way it is, that defense for the Browns has to shore up a little bit. But Kansas City, they're moving all things considered as well. I mean, they've had no struggles. So, it looks like it's going to be another Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes dance off again.
Yeah, another young Brady versus Aaron Rodgers right there.
Yep. But yeah, Bills are definitely the clear favorite. No question about it. Just everything that they're doing right now is absolutely working.
Fun fact before we continue, I did see a stat that said it has been 3,997 consecutive days since the Jets, Jags, Lions, and Giants have all won on the same Sunday.
Yeah, I got you. Give me 1 second.
Now that's insane. Oh my gosh. So the next thing that we're going to be doing, everybody, is going into the picks for this week and to discuss who we are going to be choosing out of all of the teams. Starting with tomorrow night, the Browns versus Steelers. That'll be the first game kicking off this week. And, it's going to be a shootout because obviously you've got the starting quarterback for the Steelers versus the backup quarterback for the Browns. We'll see who can execute the offense better, Mitch Trubisky or Jacoby Brissett. But, we'll start off with the first game of the week for Thursday, and I'm going to pick my hometown team, Cleveland Browns, obviously showing my bias a little bit, but I just think that, without TJ Watt and we now have a fully healthy offensive line in there, and not to mention Chubb and Hunt are looking great as usual. Jacoby finally got Amari Cooper, mixed in with this offense and played with them very well. And this Steelers defense is looking lackluster in the back half other than Minkah Fitzpatrick. So I think that we're going to run it down their throats all day tomorrow. And I think that if we can rush Trubisky and get him to be off balance, then I think that we can win that game. So I'm going with the Browns tomorrow for the Thursday night game.
Yeah, I'll go with the Browns as well. I think after a humiliating loss, I think that they want to try to rebound here and win that game. All right, next one. The New Orleans Saints travel to Carolina to face the Panthers.
I'm going to go with Baker and the Panthers on this one. I think that, with the struggles that they've had for the first couple weeks, I think that this is the game that they finally get it in check and they finally get their offensive system rolling and they finally start feeding Christian McCaffrey the ball and getting him looks. Their offense runs through him first.
They better. I have him on my freaking fantasy team and they haven't been using him at all. And it's so stupid. I'm going to agree with you. The Panthers, I think, are going to figure it out, especially with the dysfunction of the Saints right now. Jameis Winston, dealing with he has rib pain too, very similar to what Herbert's dealing with. I think they said he's actually broken like one or two vertebrae. Yeah, and he's like in serious pain. They said he's not going to get any more hurt from it, but says that like obviously it's impacting his play right now. Even if they get Kamara back, I still don't quite think, unless Kamara goes for like a absolutely insane day, I don't think that the Saints are going to overcome those struggles right now.
And Andy Dalton's not going to play that well, so.
Yeah. So, all right, next game. The Houston Texans travel to Chicago to take on the Bears.
I'm going to give it to Houston in this one. I think with the way that the Bears team's been playing, I think with how bad their offensive line looks, I think with how, the Bears don't really have any good weapons other than Darnell Mooney. Derek Stingley is going to lock him down. And I think the Texans are going to come out on top with this one.
I was half tempted to pick Houston, but I'm going to go with the Chicago Bears on this one. The Texans still can't stop the run. Their inability to slow down the run is what's going to be their Achilles heel. The Bears can attack you in a lot of different ways offensively by running the football. And I think that they're going to, I think they had a tough challenge last week against Green Bay's better defense than what the Texans are. I think it'll be a close one, but I think the Bears are going to scrap that one out.
I think so, but the Texans almost beat the Broncos, and as long as they can get Dameon Pierce going on the ground, they have a shot of winning. So we'll have to wait and see. It will be a very close game, but I think the Texans squeak out with the 3-point victory on this one.
I mean, it could happen for sure. All right, the Chiefs go to Lucas Oil to face the Colts.
Oh, I'm going with the Colts 100% on this. No, I'm kidding.
I already had written in Chiefs for both of us before you even made the pick because I knew where we were going with this.
Oh, you're picking the Chiefs too?
Yeah, I'm picking the Chiefs 100%. Yeah, 100%.
Wow, you wouldn't pick Jacksonville, but you would pick the Chiefs.
I mean, of course. What do you mean? Of course I would have picked Jacksonville. Jacksonville is not as good as the Chiefs.
Yes,
and I told you already.
Won against Jacksonville
the defensive scheme of Gus Bradley has never fared well against Patrick Mahomes ever. So Patrick Mahomes is going to remind everyone that, he's Patrick Mahomes and they're going to win their third straight game.
But you also faced Jacksonville in Jacksonville and you haven't beaten them since 2014.
So. I understand that. But then again, that team that I saw last week, they had no answer for anything. They look like they're going to lose by 50 to the Chiefs this week. and put that on record too. They just might. So
Mahomes there's that 5 touchdowns.
The Bills and the Dolphins, an AFC East matchup.
Shockingly, I've actually got the Dolphins winning this game.
Ooh. Okay.
It's gonna be my sleeper pick for this week, and I think that if they could come back from a 21-point deficit against the Ravens defense, which mind you is actually pretty damn good, and you've got Waddle and Hill playing like this, I think that they're gonna shock a lot of people, and the Dolphins are actually gonna come out on top with this one for the first time around. The second time around, not so much, but the first time around, the Dolphins will win this one, and I'm fairly confident in my pick, and we'll have to wait and see how it goes.
Well, I always say the emotional wins followed by the game next week, you're normally not as good as what you just emotionally did the previous week. Now, I agree the Dolphins, I mean, it sucks because one of these teams is not going to be undefeated by the end of this game. So, I mean, this might be right here, potentially the two best teams in the NFL at the moment. And, this is an early game for a matchup this great. I think the Bills just at the moment are a slightly better team. And I know that they're probably going to come back down to earth in this game. But at the end of the game, I would much rather have Josh Allen throwing the football to win these games than what I would want Tua Tagovailoa to do.
Oh, 100%. No doubt about it. But I think that
I just think that's what's going to make this game different.
I think this Dolphins defense, though, is a scrappy bunch and better than what people think, especially having Smith and Howard.
Oh, I agree, but they also did just give up 38 to the Ravens. Now, I understand that it's Lamar Jackson, but I mean, the Dolphins in this moment, I mean, they gave up 17 the first week against the New England Patriots. So I assume that this week they're going to give up probably 24 to 31 to the Buffalo Bills. I don't anticipate the Bills scoring any less than 24 points. And I could see a scenario where Tua kind of comes back down to earth. He's not going to repeat that performance. He's not going to do it at least this week. So the Bills, it'll be another shootout. I think it's going to be like a 31 to 28 kind of game. And I think the Bills are just going to end up with the win on that one. I just think the Bills are just a little too diverse for the Dolphins right now.
I think so too. And like I said, it's a very tough pick for me, but I liked what the Dolphins did. I liked how they came back from a 21-point deficit.
Oh, I agree.
All the Ravens had to do was stop them. So,
I mean, there's only one other team that I would have difficulty picking the Bills over them, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Dolphins right now make that very difficult. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I just don't know. I just don't know if the Bills have been making quarterbacks' lives hell.
If we had Justin Herbert on the Dolphins team right now, I would probably pick the Dolphins over.
Oh yeah, I'd probably pick the Dolphins to win it all. I mean, that just goes to show you what I think of Justin Herbert. So, but let's go from an AFC East matchup to an NFC North matchup. The Lions versus the Vikings.
I got the Lions.
Got the Lions in that one?
I've got the Lions. They've put up like 30 points.
They're putting up an average of 35 points per game right now.
Yeah. They put up 35 their first week, 36 this last week. This offense is clicking on all cylinders. They're playing lights out, and this is without having Jameson Williams in the lineup so far. DeAndre Swift's playing well. Amon-Ra St. Brown's playing well. DJ Chark is even playing really well.
Mm-hmm.
And this was without Frank Ragnow at center too. So, I think that this Lions team is going to be a scrappy bunch, especially with Dan Campbell. And with the way that the Vikings imploded against the Eagles, I think that, we're going to see that again. And I think that this Lions team is going to put up another 30 points against the Vikings.
So it's funny because Kirk Cousins has lost the last 10 games that he's ever been in a Monday Night Football game in. So apparently it's like, if you have Kirk Cousins and you see Monday Night Football, don't pick his team to win. Don't do it because he loses every time.
Also,
and when
the one team, the first team that the Lions beat last year when they were 0 and
like 15 at that point were the Vikings.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I totally get you there. I just think that this Vikings team, it had a great game against the Packers. It obviously came back down to earth playing an Eagles team that was obviously hungry to get some redemption. And it was a situation where, it's not a Monday Night Football game. It's a 1:00 Eastern time. It's kind of situation. So I'm going to pick the Vikings in this one. I do think it'll be another nail biter, to say the least. I think both of these teams, honestly, will end up scoring probably 28 apiece on each other. I could definitely see that. But I think the Vikings will be able to stop the Lions a few more times than what the Lions will. So I'll go with the Vikings here. Ravens versus the Patriots.
I think that I'm going to choose the Patriots on this one.
Okay.
Only because with Bill Belichick as the head coach, he's always been able to stop the most difficult team's offense on the defensive side of the ball. So we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But I'm going to choose the Patriots for this one. I'm probably going to regret it, but we'll have to wait and see.
I want to pick the Patriots.
Do it.
You know what? I'm probably going to as well. I don't know how the Ravens are going to respond to that terrible loss that they sustained last week. And if you're going to die on that hill, I'm going to die with you. So we'll both go Patriots then.
I have seen it time and time again where Bill Belichick has taken great quarterbacks and chewed them up and spit them out with the way his defense plays. So,
yep, very true. Hopefully the Patriots can score more than 17 points in a game. But we saw that, the Ravens have had difficulty, shutting down offenses, even though, they stumped the Jets offense. They just couldn't do it against the Dolphins, but we'll see how they look this week. Speaking of the Jets, you got the Bengals coming into town.
I'm going to choose the Jets on this one. I'm
with
the Jets.
You're going the Jets.
I'm going the Jets. After seeing how they've played this last week, knowing that the Bengals don't have that good of like a corner duo, and I think that Flacco has played in this division before in the AFC North.
Yes.
And with this Jets defensive line, I think they're going to get to Joe Burrow and pressure him and everything. So I'm going to go with the Jets on this one. It's going to be a close game. Joe Burrow is going to get sacked another 5 times this game, and the Jets are going to pull out a winning by 7 points against the Bengals.
I got the Bengals in this one. Joe Burrow has deleted all social media from his phone. He is completely locked in for the rest of this season to, get back and being in the shape that they're at. I think it's going to be all business in Cincinnati this week, preparing for this game. I think they know what's at stake, and I think they're going to get their first win of the season. All right, the Raiders going into Tennessee. 2 0-2 teams here. Who do you have?
I got the Raiders. They're like the Titans until they show me more, man. I can't pick them. I was really high on them, and then they had 2 crappy performances, and it really, really is showing that they are desperately missing AJ Brown.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go with the Raiders, and if it wasn't for the last second blow up that they had against the Cardinals, they would have beaten the Cardinals and everything. Yeah. So I'm going with the Raiders in this one.
Yeah, I agree with you. Tennessee can't even throw the football right now. And right now they can't even run the football. Derrick Henry has 130 yards through the first 2 weeks of the season. He has not looked good at all. They can't run the football. They can't pass the football. They've scored, how many points did they score week 1? I don't even remember. But, they scored only 7 this week. So they've only scored 20 points in the first couple weeks of the season. So right now, they're just struggling altogether as a team right now. I think the Raiders 2 times have been so close to getting a win, and I think that they're about to finally get there. So, yeah, I'll go Raiders as well. The Eagles facing Carson Wentz's now future team, the Washington Commanders. Who do you have in this game?
I regretted it came back to bite me for not picking the Eagles, so I'm going to go with the Eagles, even though I think that this Commanders team is playing really well, especially with the way Carson's playing. He brought them back to a comeback versus the Jags. He brought them within near spitting distance of the Lions and almost winning that game and everything. And this, Commanders offense is looking very well, but I think that this Eagles team is too good to be messing with. You're going to have Slay guarding Jahan Dotson, who's been Wentz's big target, and this Eagles defense is going to get to him in the backfield. So I'm going to pick the Eagles in this one.
Yep. I am going to do the same thing. I'm going to pick the Eagles. They just look too good right now. The Commanders are just out of sync, even though they've been pretty good. They've just been losing games. They just have kept games too close. And I think that just favors the Eagles. All right, let's go into the next one. The Jaguars going to LA to face the Chargers.
I'm going to go with the Chargers on this one.
I'm going to do the same thing. Even if Justin Herbert's not 100%, still feel that this Chargers team has enough weapons and, their defense is elite. So I think that they'll be fine. The Rams facing the Arizona Cardinals.
I got the Rams. Like I said, if it wasn't for the Raiders imploding towards the end of the game against the Cardinals, they would have had their second loss in a row. And I think this Rams defense is still too good that they're going to pressure Kyler Murray and get to him. And with Kyler Murray not having D-Hop there, Ramsey's going to be guarding A.J. Green or maybe even Rondell Moore. So, I'm going to go with the Rams in this one.
All right. The Seattle Seahawks versus the Atlanta Falcons, the Battle of the Birds.
I'm actually going to go with the Falcons in this one.
Okay. Primary reasoning why?
They lost by 1 to the Saints the first week. They almost came back and beat the Rams this past week. I think their offense has been playing, really good, and their defense could step it up a little bit. But I think with the way that this Falcons offense has been playing, I think that they're going to squeak out a win this week. So I'm going to go with and not to mention, Geno Smith has not been getting DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett involved in this offense and everything either. So, they really need to get them two involved if you're planning on winning this game. You can't just rely on the rush. And, Geno's you've got to start throwing the ball. So I'm going to go with the Falcons in this one.
All right, I'm going to go right with you. I was really hoping you would pick the Seahawks. But, yeah, I think that one's going to be the upset for sure. I think the Falcons are overdue for a win. They've been really close this last week and against a good team in the Rams. So I do think that they'll come back.
I think they'll lose next week, though.
Yeah. The Green Bay Packers versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady. Who do you got?
I got Rodgers and the Packers this week with Mike Evans possibly having a 1-game suspension and Chris Godwin still not back 100%. He's going to have to rely on Julio Jones and now Cole Beasley if he does play. And Tom Brady has not been looking like the Tom Brady of old. He's been playing like he should have just been retired and stayed retired. His offense has not been producing. The defense has been keeping him in games. And, any other high-powered offense in this league, they would have lost their first 2 games. So I'm going to go with Rodgers and the Packers on this one.
I'm actually going to go with the Bucs here as against my better judgment. Green Bay, right now, Rodgers is still trying to get in sync with his receivers. And the best weapons they have right now is stopping A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. And right now, that Tampa Bay defense is still really good. They still got pass rushers. They still got one of the better run-stopping defenses in all of the NFL. They make things very difficult for opposing offenses. And, Green Bay's off the defense, I don't think is anything to be admired. I think even if Godwin doesn't even play, I think even still having Cole Beasley and Julio Jones and a few others, I think Tom Brady can still get it done and they can still run the football. I think people are just going to start discounting the Buccaneers, even though I still think that they can handle it.
All right, let's get these last 2 done so I can get going.
Sounds good. All right, 49ers versus the Broncos.
I got the 49ers in this one. The defense is too good. Jimmy G has the chemistry with the team and the wide receivers. I'm going to go with the Niners on this one.
I'm going to go Niners as well. All right. The Monday Night Football matchup between the Cowboys and the Giants.
I'm going to go with the Giants. They've been playing really well this past 2 weeks. I think with, that Cowboys defense is something to be scared of, but I think that Saquon Barkley is going to run all over them, and I think that Daniel Jones is going to do just enough to win this game, so we'll have to wait and see.
I'm going with the boys in this one. I think after what we saw last week, they were able to get unlimited pressure on Joe Burrow, and I think they're going to do the same thing with the Giants. I think their defense is stepping up, and I think that they're going to be able to pull it out just enough to be able to win this game. So I think the Giants are riding on high right now, and I think the Cowboys have a chance to upset them. So I'm going to go with the Cowboys there. All right, well, that's going to do it for this one, guys. Hope you all enjoyed. Let us know your thoughts on those picks and everything else we talked about. This is the Chasing Larger Sports Stories podcast. Enjoy the rest of your day.